And everybody that knows him says the same thing. And these are all false to me. These are false accusations in certain cases, and certain cases, even the media agrees with that. I can only say that what they've done to this man is incredible.
Joining us now is Nicole DeBoard. She's a criminal defense attorney, and Kenneth Vecchio, attorney and Republican strategist. And Ken, I want to start with you. A polygraph, it's not supposed to be used in criminal proceedings in courts because sometimes it can be not reliable, but investigators do use it to determine whether or not they think somebody is really telling the truth. In other words, whether it's worthy of an investigation. So why shouldn't the Senate take this and say, okay, at least by her own polygraph, she seems to be telling the truth. Let's further investigate this.
In criminal law, you always have to look at things under the totality of the circumstances. And in the totality of the circumstances, you want to weigh every type of evidence that's possible, that's out there. Now, given that this isn't a criminal proceeding, I do think that there's some merit to a polygraph test in any type of matter to make an assessment whether somebody's telling the truth or not. In this particular case, I think that Ford's accusation is completely meritless. It comes from a retrieved memory, which is inherently less credible and reliable than a regular memory. She has no corroborating evidence whatsoever to support her claim.
Well, other than her therapist notes from 6 years ago, and she put forward 4 people who are willing to say that she contemporaneously told them years ago about this incident with Kavanaugh.
I'd like to address that directly. Let's take it in a reverse test. Let's say that Mark tells his buddy Ed that he had sex with a famous actress back in 2001. He tells her that in 2001. It's a complete lie. He never had sex with this famous actress. Then 17 years later, in 2018, he tells 1 million people via CNN that he had sex with her. It's a complete lie. Just because you told people back then doesn't make that it's not a lie then and not a lie now.
Good point. And Nicole, to that point, it is possible that maybe she was misremembering and telling a false story for years involving Brett Kavanaugh, right?
Who knows? I mean, I think really the questioning and the chance for everyone to sort of air what story it is that they want to tell tomorrow is really important, because the people who are asking the questions are going to be able to look her in the eye and determine whether or not they feel what she's saying makes sense and is credible. And they can ask follow-up questions to determine whether or not the details are there. So I think this is going to be an interesting day.
Is it also interesting that more accusers have come forward, and what should one make or not make of the fact that this third accuser on this day provided an affidavit, a written deposition under penalty of perjury, making her accusations about what she saw with Brett Kavanaugh years ago?
It certainly is interesting, and I think that what we're going to find out as these questions get into more detail are whether or not there are any corroborating circumstances, and at the end of the day, whether or not this is the type of thing and whether the allegations that are being made are credible enough to make a difference, and ultimately whether or not Kavanaugh is confirmed. So we need to hear the details, and we're gonna do that, it sounds like.
I have one particular point I disagree with Nicole on.
Okay.
I don't think that there's any credibility weight that should be given to somebody when it's one person's word versus another. Me, as a former judge, I can't tell if somebody's lying or if they're telling the truth.
Does it also then go to Kavanaugh in terms of his recollections or lack of recollections or denials about Dr. Ford?
Sure. I think that this should be fettered out. I do think it should be done quickly with all 3 of these women, but I find no credibility in any of the matters to the degree where somebody's career can be wrecked over it, where anything should be taken away from their life because there's absolutely no corroboration, no physical evidence, no forensic evidence, no audio, no video, no eyewitnesses, nothing. In all of them, it actually goes beyond a 50-50 in Kavanaugh's direction, because in Ford's case, she named 4 people. They all said that they weren't there, it didn't happen. In Ramirez's case, her best friend said, I never heard about anything about
But again, they both have provided now the names of people who have corroborated being told about these accusations years ago, either at the time or shortly thereafter.
That, to me, again, is absolutely meaningless from an evidentiary purpose, because they could have been lying then and lying now.
But what would be their purpose, Ken, of lying back then?
Oh, there's lots of motivations. People have all different reasons why they make up criminal charges, and we just don't know. And until it happens to you at home, to your son, your daughter, your husband, your wife, you can't feel what this means to have an accusation levied against you by one person's word. That's too much control in somebody, and to give somebody that they could wreck somebody's life because just they say it happened.
Nicole, do you leave open the possibility that now there's a fourth accuser? Do you leave open the possibility that all four have made this up, perhaps because of some sort of pile-on or some sort of conspiracy to try and block Kavanaugh from getting the Supreme Court spot?
You know, the reality is that anything is possible, and that's why it's going to be so important to hear the details of what these folks have to say. And, you know, do I wish that the courts wouldn't accept just the word of one person against another? Let me tell you, there are people in prison across the United States because of the word of one person. And while it may not be for many satisfactory evidence, unfortunately, our justice system allows for that to happen all the time. If you walk down to the courthouse where I practice in Harris County, Texas, you will find a courthouse full of trials going on, sexual assault trials, where the only evidence in the case is the word of the accuser, and sometimes that prevails. So, you know,
but
the committee is going to have a hard job
it should never prevail. Am I correct? It should never prevail. It's per se reasonable doubt where one person's word could convict somebody. And I think that this case with Kavanaugh, David, hopefully can change the entire landscape of criminal law so that people don't get prosecuted like Nicole's talking about.
Nicole, how about it?
I would love it. I mean, there are so many people facing lifetime crises over the word of one accuser. And as already been pointed out, we don't know what the motivation sometimes is for individuals making allegations when there is no physical evidence. You have cases of the very most serious nature, aggravated sexual assault being prosecuted every day in courtrooms across the United States based on the word of one accuser with no physical evidence whatsoever.
Nicole DeBoard and Kenneth Vecchio, thank you both very much. A special thanks, Ken, to your family, and Mario, who was here, your son, on his birthday. He's here at i24 News watching his dad. Happy birthday, Mario. Thanks so much. Still to come, some women are breaking the National Football League's glass ceiling. We will introduce you to the very first all-female broadcast team for the NFL. And these women are walking on water? What? Cirque du So Strange is, whoa, coming up.